Hi, it's Kim here from the Time Slip Simulator. Today I just want to give you a quick demo of some of the new features in version 1.1.1. Let's first start with the new auto pause feature. So I'm just going to press simulate. Turn these off. So down here you'll see the pause button. So there's several options now. So pause fin means pause finish line. So if I just play, what will happen is they automatically pause at the finish line. This is the existing functionality. And we get to the 660 pause. Pause off means that the replay won't pause at all, and they'll just run through to the end of the track. But now we have pause left and pause right. So if I go pause left, what's going to happen now is when the vehicle in the left lane reaches each of the increments, so 60, 330, the 8th mile an hour cone, 660 and so forth, the simulation will automatically pause. So you no longer have to do this manually, and this is great for looking at your track position compared to that of your opponent. So if I just press play, you see that automatically pauses, so we can gauge our position relative to our opponent here. I'll press resume. Now we're at 330 and continue, and then stop and go back. I can do the same in the right lane. So if I now change to the right lane, press play, already pausing it, the 60-foot mark. Let's go to 330, see where our opponent is. There they are. So the way that you can use this new feature is, as I said, it automatically pauses for you, so you no longer have to do this manually. It always pauses in exactly the same spots, and this is where you can compare your position with that of your opponent. So obviously the earlier in the run you know whether you're going to finish first or second, or maybe it's too close to call, the better decisions you'll make at the finish line. Next, let's look at the new motorcycle models. So I'll just go back. I'll change to motorcycles and then simulate. So here you see the new motorcycle models. I'll change to the left lane. I'll turn the sound on, press play, and we'll just pause it at the finish line. There we go, resume. So this is for all of our two-wheel competitors. I'll change from the right lane, press play. There we go. Resume. Stop. So that's the new motorcycle models. Another addition, I'll just change back to dragster and a door car here, is when you go to when you make changes on the simulation screen. So I'll go to the simulation screen. I'll turn the sound off, and let's, for example, turn the stats on, the time slips on, and let's change the camera mode to look down. So I'm just going to go through the camera modes here. Look down. When I leave the screen now, the simulation screen, and go back to the time slip screen, it's going to remember these settings. So you don't have to keep going back to your favorite settings. So if I go back to time slip and I go forward again, you'll see that it's remembered the settings. And also, if you quit out of the time slip simulator and come back in, it'll remember your last settings as well. One of the other small additions, and I know people have been calling out for this one, is if I just turn these two off, I can turn the rear view mirror on. So you see the rear view mirror here. So if I press play, now you can see your opponent in the rear view mirror. So that helps with understanding track position and keeping, situational awareness and keeping an eye on your opponent. One of the other new additions, I'll just turn the mirror off, is I've added a bunch of new stats as well. So if I press play, we'll just let it run for a little bit and I'll pause it. So we have the ET These are in the existing version, but when we get down further, these are the new ones. So we've got the current ET, the distance from start in feet, distance to finish in feet, the mile per hour instant, so that's the instant mile per hour. This will always be a little bit higher than your mile per hour you see on your time slip, because this is not an average. This is like over, the average is over like an inch of distance. Your feet per second and your G-force. The next one we have here is your closure rate in mile per hour. So that's how quickly, in this instance, the vehicle in the left lane is closing on the vehicle in the right lane at 9.51 miles per hour or 13.94 feet. What's the current gap between the two vehicles? So that's 45 feet at the moment. And the time, so just over 3/10. Down below here is the major news stats in this area, and I'll detail this later in greater detail because it needs further explanation. But what actually is going to happen here is it tells you how far, in this line here, it tells you how far you are in front or behind your dial-in in distance, and this one tells you in time. And then what we've got down here is the win window. So this tells you how big your win window is. So what is your, how big is the space that you have available to you to win this race? So in this instance, at this point in the track, it's 45 feet, the win window size, and just over 3/10. And as I said, this is really one of the major features of this upgrade, and I'm going to go into much greater detail in the future in a separate video. So press resume. Excuse me. Track markers, I've got those on. I'm just going to adjust the time slip slightly so we can see a little bit more information here. So let's say this racer is breaking out, so they have a dial-in of 5.42, they're running 540, and a reaction time of 0.035. This racer is going over, so dialed in a 619 going 620 with a 15015 reaction. So if I now simulate, I'll turn stats off. Let's go to the top down. Now, there are a bunch of new keyboard commands which you'll see in the user documentation, but I can change now between the cameras using the number key. So point of view 1 is 1 on the keyboard, then point of view 2 is 2 on the keyboard, 3 is sideways, 4 is watch opponent, 5 is look down, and 6 is the old TV mode. So if I go back to 5 and turn, the track markers are on, let's press play. Just want to show you some of the new track markers. So I'll just pause it, spacebar to pause, that's one of the keyboard commands. Another addition to the way that you can use the cameras is the zoom in and zoom out. So there's these buttons here, so you can zoom in and zoom out. And now zoom in and zoom out works on all the camera modes except for the TV mode. But you can also use the mouse scroll wheel. So the mouse scroll wheel in the middle of your mouse, if I scroll in and out now, and that works for all camera modes except TV mode. So let's have a quick look at these markers that are on the track. I'll just turn the stats back on over here. So the existing markers that are already in the old version, and I'll talk about the new version here. So yellow line is the position of the wheels in the left lane. Light blue line is the position of the wheels in the right lane. The pink line is the dial-in. So dial-in left lane, dial-in right lane. We have the win window, which is the green box. The new marker here is this dark blue line. That is the perfect package line. So that is if you are running dead on 000 reaction time. So that is a perfect run. So this tells you how far in front or behind your perfect run you are. Now, if we just quickly glance over here at the run stats once again, there's a bit more detail here. So what is this telling us? At the moment, we can see that the left lane is in front of their dial-in. So that's what this is. So they're 3.28 feet in front of their dial-in. Or in time, that's just 0.018 seconds. In the right lane, they are 1.4 feet behind their dial-in, or 9th thou behind the dial-in. Now the win window, now this is where your front wheels need to be to win this race. At the moment, at this position on the track, where are we? Just over 570 feet. The win window is almost 24 feet long, which is represented in time in 1300s. So let's just play this to the end. So at the finish line, the wind window was just over 13 feet wide, and because this vehicle is breaking out, and 800s. So just to give you an example, I'm going to be providing a lot more detail on this because it's a really exciting new feature. Also, just quickly touch on one of the other things. I've added some new stats to the time slip here. So it used to be you just used to see the basic time slip information, but now you have this additional information. So it tells you who's got to the finish line first. So in this instance, it was the left lane that got to the finish line first. How much under or over, what the package was, and then we have the margin of victory in time. What's really cool though is the margin of victory in distance. So you can see here that in this instance, these two vehicles, the margin of victory of time of 100th is actually worth 1.638 feet. Now, once again, I'm going to touch on this a bit more, but we'll be able to create a table, for example, where let's say you're running 540s and your opponent's running 620s. You can actually use the time slip simulator to work out how much 100th is worth. So when you're crossing the finish line, how much distance can I take that is equal to 100th of a second? And then you'll be able to do this for all of the types of ETs that you might face. And then you can say, well, for this opponent, I can take this distance in feet that equals 100th. And against this opponent who might be slower or faster, I can take this distance. So that's a really cool feature. And I'm probably going to develop a table that you'll be able to use to look up as a reference. Resume. So I'll just stop it here. I'll turn these on and off. I'm going to go back to point of view mode. So there's been updates to the cameras. So this is called, I just press the 1 key then, or you can use the key, the button down here. Point of view 1. So if I left click, I can obviously look around. But now I've added additional functionality to the right mouse button. So in this instance, in point of view 1 camera mode, if I click the right mouse button, it automatically looks at my opponent. So I can look around and then right click. So left click to look around, right click to look at the opponent. So if I, let's say, turn the mirror on, press play, I'm going to slow it down a bit. So quarter speed, just so we can see it. So I'm looking around here, and now I'm right clicking to look at my opponent over my shoulder, looking around, looking at my opponent. So you get the gist. I'll just speed that up a bit. By the way, I've also added 1/32 speed as well to really slow things down. So back to normal speed, looking over my shoulder at my opponent. So that is point of view 1 camera. If I switch to point of view 2 camera, it's very similar. Once again, look around. But in this instance, instead of looking at your opponent when you right click, it looks at 90 degrees. So if I click now, it's looking 90 degrees. If I press play, I'll leave the rear view mirror on. So 90 degrees. So as I'm clicking the right mouse button, I'm looking 90 degrees over. And here comes my opponent. You can also zoom in. So sideways is just locks on sideways. This is an existing camera mode. Then we've got watch opponent, which just locks onto your opponent. You don't have to do anything. We've got the look down mode, and we've got the TV mode. But if I go back to point of view 1, the other thing we can do, stop, play, I might change lanes and then look over here, turn the mirror off, press play. And I'm just going to use the mouse to zoom in. So you can see, I can zoom in and look at my opponent. Okay, stop, zoom back out, it's a bit close. So there's also a bunch of new keyboard commands. I won't go through them. They're in the download in the new user guide. You can download those. I've created a PDF of those. I have improved the check for back off as well. So this has been improved. It doesn't work in all cases because it is an estimation. It does some really basic run completion. So you might see that it works well for you. It might not. It depends on your particular vehicle and settings. It's quite generic. And also I just wanted to talk about this handy feature for when you save and restore or save and clear a run. Just to speed up the process, what I've done is let me find a blank one. So here's a blank one. So if I generate, let's say typically you are running a dragster and you're often running other dragsters. So I'll just change this to 580. Let's make this 480 and 520, for example. Okay, and typically, you're running over the 8th mile, tree speed is 05, full tree. So if I press save, what it's going to do is remember that dragster as the vehicle type and all of these settings here, the system will remember. Now, if I go to another time slip and I press clear, what it's going to do is it's remembered your personal favorite settings. So if I change this to door car, and I press clear, notice how it went dragster, and then reset these values to what your last save was. So what it speeds up the process. If you're always 8th mile dragster, then it's just going to speed up this process. I think that is a basic overview. As I said, I'll be producing a lot of tutorial videos, a lot of demos, particularly around the wind window and the additional run stats, how close you are to your dial in distance and time, how big the wind window is. So that, in a nutshell, is 1.1.1. I'm really pleased. I'm looking forward to hearing what your feedback will be. And thanks for listening.